Hello, everyone. Welcome to our lunch and learn today. I'm so grateful for you guys being here. We recognize that right now there are a lot of things that you could be doing considering it's budget season, wrapping some bills up. So we really appreciate you taking the time out to be here with us. If you've been here before, my name is Josie, and I am the president of J Badger Consulting. And Everett.
Yeah, and my name's Everett Deibler, and I have been working with Josie. I think if you have been to these lunch and learns, you've heard me introduce myself as a learning specialist at a community college with a focus on access. And access is definitely a passion of mine, but I just joined J Badger Consulting as a full-time part of the team as our director of strategy and engagement. So I'm happy to be here in that new role, Josie, and being a part of the team with you and working on these things together.
Thanks, Chris. I'm excited. Congrats, me too, because getting Everett on this team was a huge achievement for me. Might save my mental health. So guys, if you haven't been here before, we set this time aside somewhere between a half hour, 45 minutes to talk about issues related to disability that you all will be facing. And in particular, this spring, we've been focusing on access. Within the next month or two, we will be making sure that we get these different recording webinars up on our website. But for right now, we're still kind of pulling them together and sharing them directly with each of you. One of the huge requests from our previous webinars was around social media access. And so that is what we will be talking about today.
Go ahead. Before I move on to the next slide, Josie, I want to put in the chat the registration. Yes. I think the majority of you that are in here already registered through our Google form that's on our website. But if you got the email blast like around 11:30 this morning and you're just joining and you want to be connected to these things in the future, I'm going to put the web address in the chat so you can get to the registration so that you can be put on our list to get the information about future sessions. But as Josie said, one of the big things was about social media access. And Josie, we're going to talk about like the reach of social media.
Yeah, I think that all of you with your specific positions probably recognize the influence that social media now has and the role it plays in everything from public opinion to elections. And so the World Health Organization reports that 33% of the world's population has some sort of sensory impairment. The reason this part is important is because we can assume that approximately the same number use social media and the internet. According to the Pew Research Center, 23% of people in the US use Twitter, 40% of people in the US Instagram, 69% report having Facebook, and TikTok has reported having 150 million.
So things are exploding. When we're talking about sensory impairments, we're primarily talking about people who are hard of hearing and people who have some kind of vision impairment. Maybe they're low vision or they have no vision, right? So people are using this all the time, and especially like I would say like the younger demographic is using this to get their news, right? So many Josie and I work a lot with young adults that say, I don't watch the news. I don't watch mainstream media. I'm on Twitter or I'm on Instagram or I follow causes on TikTok. It's where things are headed. So one of the big things that people asked for was how can I design my social media to be more inclusive, right? And so one of the things that I want to stress is that, and I think I stressed this in a previous lunch and learn, is that this space around web design and social media is evolving rapidly, right? These platforms are making changes to how people can make things more accessible, the way that it's done, the ease with which it's done. So this is ever evolving. So at the end of this lunch and learn, you're going to see that I have a bunch of links to different platforms, access tips and strategies and what they tell you to do and how to do things. And that's because these things are ever evolving. And we made this presentation. We did it on purpose to make it sooner rather like we didn't, this isn't in the can. We made this new, right? And so it was like, so we can be as up to date as possible for you as of when we made it, but it's ever evolving. Okay, so know that. But some of the tips that we have are using alt text on post images. And so if you've been to these lunch and learns before, you know that alt text is literally a description of the image that you're presenting on a website or on social media, right? And you're providing the context of the image. And so the image that you see here is a lovely photo of me on an airplane. I don't look so happy, but it was one of the ones that I felt was easiest to show what to do. And so it depends. Like you could say, this is a picture of Everett frowning with headphones on his face or around his neck on an airplane, right? That could be an alt text, right? Or it could be, maybe you're looking at the kind of headphones I'm wearing, or maybe that's what you're focused on. So then the alt text context would change depending on what you're trying to present or convey. And so according to Hootsuite, which I'm assuming some of you, if you manage social media for your offices, right, you might be using a platform like this, like Hootsuite, to navigate all the things, all the social media channels that you have. And so according to them, there's alt text availability on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn right now. And you can see, so I use an example here from Twitter, exactly. And so when you're on Twitter and you're creating a post, you'll see here on the left image, I have it circled where it says Alt plus, right? That's when you can then add your description of your images, right? And Facebook is pretty similar in that way. You right click on the post as you're making it and you can add an alternative text. And then a dialog box pops up on your phone or on your computer to edit your alt text, okay? The thing that's interesting about Twitter, though, that I'll tell you is that once you do that, your post will actually have an alt icon on it, which is interesting in the sense that alt text is for people that can't see the screen, but it is an indicator to those with low vision that this image is described by alternative text, right? So there's a way for people to know on Twitter, at least, that this has been described. If there is not if there's not a way for you to do alt text on a platform, you want to put the image description in the post. That might feel to you like, oh, well, that makes things really, really long, but it is the most inclusive way to be doing things. And you want to avoid using things like words like image of or photo of in your alt text, because the screen reader technology for those that are visually impaired will actually say those words previously. So you don't have to double up and say that, right? And if you have an image of text, let's say you're posting something about an event that's coming up, or you have an infographic that is basically text-based, your alt text should be a transcription of the text of that image, right? So that people get the information. But I said, you're like, we don't want to make this too long, right? But so you want to be as concise as possible, but really what you include depends on the context of your given image. Okay, and then obviously if you're making video content, which I feel like is exploding, especially with YouTube shorts and reels and TikToks. I mean, people are posting videos anyway, but they're exploding. The nice thing is though, I was able to give you links to social media platforms that have video capabilities like this, and to give you the ability of how to go about adding captions. You see that Facebook will automatically generate captions for you, and you can edit them, which is really, really good. Or you can upload what's known as a .srt file, right? So if you have a transcript of what was said, you can go online. There are free converters to .srt files. I can't say they're all going to be like you might, you have to make sure that what you're checking in is like secure and all that, because there's all kinds of these like free converters online. So just be aware of that, but you can do that. Instagram, well, you can add auto generation closed captions to reels and stories through your mobile app, right? And you can also upload those SRT files. But again, notice that Instagram is only through mobile, right? You can only do this through mobile. And I would say that one of the best practices is the auto-generated captions that are coming out with AI now are really, really good for the most part. In fact, I think Josie has the captions turned on for herself right now here on Zoom, right? They are really good, but I would check them just to make sure they are decent, they are good, right? Again, TikTok does auto-generated captions, right? And you can use TikTok editing tools to do the editing of your captions. YouTube is really great with their auto-generated captions, and their editing is really, really easy once you get in their platform. And Twitter now, this is recent, auto captions are now enabled by default for videos posted on Twitter. And again, you can upload those .srt files if you really want to look into and making sure things are absolutely correct. But a year ago, 18 months ago, this wouldn't have been the case over here on my screen. This wouldn't have been the case. This wouldn't have been how it works. There wouldn't have been so much AI availability. Okay, so Josie, I'm gonna ask you to talk about like language tips and making your posts as accessible as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ev. So something that we don't, as folks that work in the government, in legislators' offices, sometimes we struggle with making things language friendly, accessible to individuals, either with maybe a lower literacy level, maybe those who speak English as a second language. And so it's really important to start thinking through simple language. What are the easiest ways to say something? What are the shortest sentences? There are, as we've talked about a little bit, there are accessibility checkers on like Windows, Microsoft Word, and all of those that can help you sort of simplify, and it will actually tell you what grade reading level you're running in. But there are a lot more tools online now that can really help with some of that. And I'm going to be honest, AI is fabulous for this. If you say, write this, open quote, whatever you want to say, close quote, in a 5th grade reading level, it will convert it to that. And so I'm really recommending to start using the virtual tools because it's very difficult.
I think it's funny because before everybody got on here, Josie and I were just talking about how Alexa technology has really impacted what we do every day as people with disabilities, and how AI is completely changing the way we live and making things easier. And I feel like what I hear a lot is like working in higher ed for a long time, like we're all against AI. It can't be, it can't be, it can't be. And as we're kind of unpacking this, it can be really helpful in simplifying language and writing things out in a way that makes sense. It can be really, really helpful.
Right. Yes. And I think one of the hardest things, whether you're working in academia or government affairs, is writing in plain language. So that's awesome. Avoiding fancy fonts. It's nice and pretty to be able to write in fancy fonts. However, a lot of them both are inaccessible to individuals with low vision. But also when you're using like an automatic alternative text of it, sometimes it can't decipher what the words are on there. And so it's harder for some of those apps to provide that alt text for an image. Define acronyms. We do this so much because legislation policies are always so long that we usually have some shorthand way of saying it. And I don't mind those as long as you define them at the very beginning. No altering of caps. So there's this can really make that hard to read. If you look at that fourth bullet, that is very hard to read. And actually, I struggled with reading alternating. And so for somebody with either a learning disability or low vision, that can make that text almost impossible to understand. However, if you're using camel case, which is capitalizing each word, that can be very helpful, especially in hashtags, so that the words are separated in a way you can see the beginning of each word because the capital is there. And then we recommend putting hashtags at the end of your post. If you're going to hashtag the legislator or a specific event or whatever, put those at the very end of the post.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, like that whole like alternating caps and using all caps, people with disabilities that relate to reading and reading comprehension, using the same or alternating letter case like that makes it really, really hard. It really does make it hard to decipher what they're looking at. Right? Their brain has trouble kind of identifying letters and words because it's all in the same case. So it's actually like we naturally look for capitalized sentences or capitalized things at certain spots. And it helps, you don't realize, but it helps your brain process information.
Well, and let me just add, like, in addition to alternating caps, all caps isn't helpful either. That
Right.
can make it very difficult
Yeah.
to
Or
read
all
as well.
lowercase.
Yep.
Or all lowercase. Yeah, it just isn't good. It like mushes it together like in your brain when you have reading comprehension issues. And so looking at visual content best practice, you want to look for color contrast and make sure that the letters of things pop off the screen so that people with low vision can see it. Usually like black on white is really good. Yellow on black, blue background with white text, things like that really help things pop off the screen so that people can see and read your content. The other thing is you don't want to use just color to convey meaning of something, right? You don't want to have like pictures of like a red flag and a green flag and a yellow flag, but that it means nothing, right? It's just colors, but what does that mean? What does that mean? If you want someone to click a link and it just is like click this green thing over here to get to the content, it makes it very inaccessible for screen reader users who can't really see color, right? And then you definitely want to avoid flashing or rapid moving animation, right? People love to like have fast moving videos on a post or on their websites, right? It's okay that you want to have video content, but you want to make sure that you're not having it flash or be all these flashing lights, because folks that have seizure related disorders, that will and vision issues, it'll make their eyes and their brain really uncomfortable. Like you can almost feel that. And if if you're out at night at a club or you're out somewhere where there's like strobe lights or there's too much light, we probably all experience that, right? And so the same thing goes for like post and flashing lights or flashing things on post animation. I feel like this is a big one too. People are posting memes and they want to use really, really cool emojis, right? When you're doing that, describe the content in context. If the meme is supposed to be funny, explain the joke in the alt text, right? People that can't see a meme also want to enjoy the humor that's involved in it. So please explain the joke, because everybody wants to laugh at what you presented, right? You want to put emojis at the end of a sentence or at the end of a post, right? And I would say don't use 3 or more emojis in a post, right? I think this is maybe more of a young adult thing or a youth thing. They're just throwing emojis everywhere. And it's like, oh, Lord, how can I read this? And the other thing is that you have this tweet over here from Domino's Pizza. This whole thing where they're putting lines to make images, like, don't do this ever. This would be crazy inaccessible for someone using a screen reader. They would have no idea at all what you're trying to convey at all. The only way that you would use this is maybe use it as an image, which then takes away from what you built on the post anyway. So just don't do, and this just proves, right, that in access happens at every level, right? Domino's is a major company that did this, right? This is one of the worst ways that you can convey things on social media. Okay, so as I promised before, there is platform-specific guidance for all of this. And one of the things, if you're managing this, is you want to check back on these links regularly. Go back once a month, put it on your calendar if that's what you're doing, and just check what the newest trends are in access. And so one of the biggest things about attending this lunch and learn, in my view, is to just get easy access to these links, right? So there's things for Meta, there's things for Instagram and Facebook that are directly with those, right? Then I have things for Twitter, right? And they even have an account on Twitter that literally addresses access. So you'll get, if you follow them, they'll literally give you tips and tricks on their account. And then I have things for LinkedIn, Pinterest. I don't know if you're really using that much as a legislator, as working in an office, but it's here. And then TikTok. And I think that with again, if people are starting to use TikTok in a way, you really want to make sure that you're keeping up with them, because their platform, again, everything is evolving so quickly. It's hard to keep up and stay. So part of this is really being able to know where to go to stay up to date on how to make things better and how to do it easily. Because again, a lot of these platforms are making it super simple to get to this information.
Okay, so first, before we even jump into questions, I want to thank you guys for carving time out to be here with us today. We are so grateful for support from Trail, United Way, I Want to Work, and the Disability Employment and Empowerment Caucus. If you have not heard about the caucus, I would highly recommend that you reach out either to me, who I can connect you to some of the folks in charge of that, or you can reach out directly to Senator Tartaglione, Representative Jess Benham, Representative Clunk, and we can get you connected. So before we close anything out, I'd like to open the floor to any questions. You can either unmute or throw them in the chat.
And I hope this was helpful. I really do. I hope that this was at least gives you some things to think about when creating post content and different things. Because I think a lot of you, for you, this is part of what your job is, right? So that's might have been why you registered or why things were sent to you. So we're here to answer any questions if you have them.
And as always, we will be sending the recording and the PowerPoint out to those who registered. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be developing a page with all of these lunch and learns.
Yeah, and I just want to put a shameless plug in for our next session, which is going to be in July. I think it's July 27th, if memory serves me right. It's actually going to be on the independent living philosophy, which I think is when you're talking about working with people with disabilities who are advocates.
Yes.
A lot of it is based in the independent living movement and the independent living philosophy, which we'll talk about, because I think that kind of has helped create disability culture and the disability advocacy perspective. And so as people working with constituents, I feel like that next session will be helpful as you're working with advocates who may be there promoting a disability focused perspective or disability focused advocacy agenda.
Okay, well, with no questions coming in,
I see some that are, I see thank yous, and I see.
We're just telling what to search for.
It was very useful. I'll be sharing it with The DOD who handles our social media.
It's hard to read.
And we also had the communications director of the Republican caucus in the House reach out to us saying that she was interested in receiving the video. So if you're aware of other folks that are in charge of social media, please share this with them as well.
Well, and I see here that one of the wishes is that it would be great if the standard practice for the comm team in Harrisburg to automatically caption videos they take.
Yes.
It's all about building procedures in place. It's like building things with access in mind, and so having that procedure in place is a big thing in there. And there are platforms that can help you do that easily. You just have to invest in them, and they're not super expensive. And there are also one of the great places that Josie has used for captioning videos, and I'll just put it's rev.com. Right, Josie?
Mhm.
It's rev.com. I'll put it in the chat. They're really low cost in terms of if you have like a 3-minute video that you need captioned, I think it's like, is it a couple bucks a minute of video
Yeah.
content for them? It might be a little bit over $1 a minute to get things captioned by them, and they'll send you the file that you need, and they can do it pretty quickly, like within
A day or so.
24 hours to 48 hours tops. Now, if you're sending them an hour-long video, that might take longer, but you get the gist. It's not that expensive.
And if you
Right.
load it into YouTube, the captions are generated and you can go in and edit them. So although, yes, it absolutely should be captioned by the team, there are other ways to also get that done.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you
Yeah.
everyone for
Yeah,
joining.
thank you, everybody, and thank you for the positive feedback, and hopefully we'll see you all next month.
Yep, have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, like just not having clothes.